Mike became a catalyst for arts in this community. He used the coffee shop to showcase local artists. He was a great supporter of the performing arts. He brought in lots of major musicians like George Winston and John McCutcheon. He started the Seward Music Festival, started out as, and became a music arts festival in the fall. And he was just an amazing person. There's been arts in the community all the time, but he was a catalyst for this. And it's a rare person that can have an impact far beyond their time. He hasn't been here for a couple decades, but his impact is still here. And he deserves to be on record. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Madam Clerk?
Madam Mayor, next signed in is Tim McDonald.
My condolences to the family. I didn't know him that well, but I definitely knew who he was. So that's pretty cool. Tim McDonald, inside city limits. Sometimes I have to think about that for a second. I'm pretty close to the line. I want to talk about this tunnel that they're going to put through our mountain again. That's our mountain. City of Seward owns it, so it's our tunnel. They're building it for us. Army Corps of Engineers, it's the federal government. I suppose there's going to be a lot of different partners, but you know, there's a lot of money in a short amount of time. 185 million bucks they say for that, but of course most of these contracts always go over, so it could be well over 200 million. And then another 150 million for the new 1,200-foot railroad dock. Those guys are pretty good. That might come in on budget. And you know, these are huge amounts of money. What is it doing for Seward? And it's not greedy, but these are huge projects, huge amount of money. Where's the synergy, you know, with Seward? I mean, up there, those tunnels, the old tunnel is sitting there, has cement walls come out that look like they were built to mount water generators on. They start at 2 foot tall and come up to about 10 inches tall at the top. And there's about 80 or 90 foot of them. You could put multiple in there. And these guys haven't broken any ground yet. The surveyors were here this fall. I saw them, I talked to them. So that means they're doing all the design on this right now. You can stick your face in there, and we have a lot of leverage. This is our project, even if we're not putting a penny in it. Maybe if it's a good enough idea, we should put something into it and say, okay, hey, listen, you mind if we mount these water generators up here in front of the old tunnel? Leave that in there, build a little bit of a reservoir there, and then you can have a continuous flow through the water generators, and the new tunnel is for overflow during these big flood moments. So, and you know, say, oh, we can't do that, we can't, that's baloney. We have to start doing things like that. It's not any way to run a government when you spend 150 or 200 million bucks and you get one thing done that isn't really that important. You know, we have a tunnel, we just need another one for flood control, but we've done without it for 70 or 80 years since what is going on. So, I mean, why aren't we looking at the different areas? There's so many areas where we could create energy for free. Once the initial investment is done, the maintenance is almost zero. And I mean, this could directly affect our utility bills. Don't we want that? You know, I don't see why we aren't pushing harder on this and why we're not ringing the bell about these projects and how they're going to help us. Nobody's talking about them. I don't like that.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, last signed in is Kat Sorensen.
Hello, Kat Sorensen, Inside City Limits. I want to first start with a big thank you to Public Works. All the roads were really well plowed early this morning, and it was super safe driving. Also want to thank the city again for all of the Christmas lights downtown. In conjunction with that, the Seward Chamber of Commerce is doing a holiday lights map, so any local resident or business owner can enter the holiday lights map contest, and then it'll create a map of all of the different people who've signed up, so you can drive around, check on all the holiday lights between Christmas and and New Year's, and then vote, and whoever gets the most votes, both a business and a household, will get $250 Visa gift card. So just a way to get the community and the business community involved in that larger picture that the city is putting on. We have 4 people signed up so far, which isn't a great long drive, so if you know anybody with good lights or somebody itching to do it, please get them to sign up. And then just a reminder, at 8 p.m. on December 31st is our fireworks for the New Year's. Thanks.
Thank you. And that was all signed up?
Correct.
Okay, does anyone else want to speak at this time? Come on up and give your name and inside or outside, you know.
Skip Ryerson, inside city limits. Nice to see you all after a month of being outside and visiting my first granddaughter, who, by the way, turned 1 yesterday. And the town's looking great. Christmas lights are looking fantastic. When I rolled into town, it really looks spiffy, so thank you very much. I'm here today to talk to you about our electric utility. Before I left town, I shared with you a funding proposal for our infrastructure project. It was a laydown that I provided. And one of the items that I had indicated in there was many years back, we had SMIC, and SMIC wasn't doing so well. SMIC was generating annual operating deficits. The city at that time called on the electric utility to cover those losses, and based on my recent notes, the loan stands at somewhere just north of $1 million. Oh, you won't find this loan in your budget or in the CAFR. It's an off the books loan between the two departments, so finance could probably research that for you. I shared with you that the electric infrastructure funding proposal identified this need for this to be repaid over 3 years, but while I was gone, you passed a resolution that we're going to move forward and consider negotiating for the sale of our utility. So it appears that at this time, in order to fund this project, I'm asking for us to accelerate that. And you're going to go, like my friend up on the council says, well, give me a funding solution. Well, it appears that for 2022 sales tax, we're projected to be somewhere just north of $1.3 million over budget on sales taxes. 75%, or just about $1 million of that, is retained by the general fund. Therefore, I strongly urge council to take action prior to the year end. There's a reason for that. You can ask the city manager. And to pay off this $1 million loan from the general fund and help us fully fund this project. I also recommend, since there's no real reason on another subject, to build up cash reserves in the hospital fund from the 1% sales tax, now that Providence has had some strong years of earnings up at Mountain Haven, that we transfer approximately $2 million from the hospital fund to the Mountain Haven Reserve Fund to build this reserve and assure that the bond liability is fully funded for both principal and interest as soon as possible, and therefore eliminate any liability or risk to our city. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak at this time? Sir.
I'm Micah Van Buskirk, Inside City Limits. I sent a letter last week that I hope everyone got a chance to read in response to our discussion, or your discussion, at the last meeting. I've been extremely impressed with all the progress that our new administration and city council has been making towards finding solutions to current issues like housing and fixing decades of deferred maintenance and infrastructure deterioration. I want to make sure that, along with this process, we do not lose sight of the need to also improve the quality of life for our year-round citizens by prioritizing the indoor recreational facility also. The Victus feasibility study that the city funded this year was just the first step in a process that also has been a priority for the city for decades. There's a 1993 Parks and Rec master plan and a draft Parks and Rec master plan from 2016. Both of these top 5 priorities is an indoor recreational facility, 1993. There is a 1999 strategic plan of the city that also speaks many times to the importance of an indoor recreational facility in this town. There is a 2030 comprehensive plan passed in 2017 that multiple times refers to a indoor recreational facility. This is not a right now issue. This is something that's been going on for decades. The 2030 Comprehensive Plan emphasizes improving, expanding, and diversifying year-round Parks and Rec with indoor and outdoor opportunities, and specifically mentions multiple times the design and construction of a community recreation facility, city legislative priorities, and capital improvement lists. I have here from as recent as 2021 and back to 2017 have also listed either an ice rink or a community indoor recreational facility as a priority. I tried to write it all down so I didn't get lost, but now I'm lost. In the same way that the Public Works Building, Animal Shelter, and new fire department have been on these priority lists for many years and progress is finally being made, the recreational facility needs to be put back on our list. It's not currently on either our legislative priority list or a capital improvement project list. We need to put this back on these lists. And tonight you have that in front of you. Please take a moment to take that off of the consent agenda and put it back on our capital improvement project list. It has been a priority of the community for a long time. Also, please make clear that the land that was designated in the Victus study is not for sale or set it aside temporarily. This is the last available parcel close to our schools that will work for this kind of facility. Significant time and effort have been invested in this project so far, and we need to keep moving forward. We've only done the first step. We need to be allowed to move forward and help meet and continue community meetings to make this, find a solution. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Last chance. Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda. I'd ask for a motion and a second to do exactly that.
I move for the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any changes to the agenda that you would like to make? Councilmember Calhoun.
Yes, I would like to remove Resolution 2022-123 from the consent agenda.
Any objections to that? Okay. Go ahead.
And I would like to remove Resolution 2022-128 from the consent agenda.
All right. Any other changes? Either putting on or taking off the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, I think we're ready to vote. Madam
Voting
Clerk.
on tonight's agenda and consent agenda as amended. Osenga?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Mayor McClure?
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved and approved on tonight's consent agenda. The introduction of ordinance 2022-017, amending Seward City Code, Title IV, Elections. This ordinance will come for public hearing and enactment on January 9th, 2023. The introduction of ordinance 2022-018, amending the land use plan to rezone Lot AT Forest Acres subdivision located at 2607 Diamond Boulevard from rural residential zoning district to resource management zoning district. This ordinance will also come for public hearing and enactment on January 9th, 2023. You have approved Resolution 2022-124, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Cornerstone Credit Services LLC for the provision of collection agency services. Resolution 2022-125, accepting grant funds in the amount of $20,000 from American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals for the purchase of veterinary equipment for the animal shelter. Resolution 2022-126, adopting the calendar year 2023 City of Seward fee schedule. Resolution 2022-127, adopting the 2023-2024 City of Seward employee positions. You have approved action memorandum 2022-015, approving amendment number 2 to the contract with Chandler, Falconer, Munson, and Cacciola for the provision of basic legal services through August 1st, 2023, for a total of $96,000 annually. You have approved the November 28th, 2022 City Council special meeting minutes, the November 28th, 2022 City Council regular meeting minutes, You have stated a non-objection to the renewal of liquor license, the non-objection to the transfer of a liquor license ownership, and the approval of restaurant designation permit for Miss Jean's Place, number 4696, Beverage Dispensary Tourism. And you have also stated a non-objection to the renewal of liquor license for Yukon Bar, number 1245, Beverage Dispensary.
Thank you. That was a lot. And that brings us to special orders, presentations, and awards. We have no proclamations or awards. And so we are at the city manager's report, Madam City Manager. And we'll find that on page 5 of the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to, touch on what's written here lightly, and that'll be the end of my report. But today, the electric utility director and myself had a meeting and Brooks also had a meeting regarding due diligence items. We're continuing to work on those items in regards to the working with HEA. I do anticipate that a document will come before you in either January or February as we continue to work through those items. Once we've worked through the due diligence items, then we'll work through the negotiation portion of it. So it's in process and we're moving along. As stated here, I did sign the closing documents for the Chugach property, so that property is officially sold. And really, that's all I have for this evening, having been out of the office in my first day back after a week.
Okay.
Oh, and I do want to apologize. The harbor master has an update
He's
for you.
approaching.
Yes, thank you.
When we're just outside city limits, the harbor master. Anyways, give me an update on the Coast Guard. We received an offer from them for the land across the bay, and it's actually about $60,000 above our appraisal. So they do their appraisal, our appraisal, so appraisal's higher, we go with theirs. And we were bringing something back before you in January for the city manager to negotiate the land transfer. So we come back in January, but it's a good thing.
Thank you. That is good news. And yes.
And I really want to thank Norm for all of his work on this. It's been years in process, and he has kept on it, and yeah, great job, Norm.
Thank you. Are there questions for the city manager regarding the report? Councilmember Lewis?
I don't have a question regarding the report, but can I ask something outside the report?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I was hoping maybe you could address the community on the responsibilities regarding snow removal in front of businesses. I know it's something that we've talked about in the past, but as you understand it, could you just readdress it for a refresher, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
And I think it was about a month ago, if I remember correctly, we sent out a letter to business owners and or their lessees regarding the code requirements that the snow be removed in front of their property within 24 hours. And that if it wasn't removed, then the city would remove it and they would receive a bill for that service. So it is a requirement, and as you know, we want to make it a walkable community as much as possible to benefit our business owners so that they can receive, the business that they're entitled to.
Thank you. I thought that was the regulation, and so I did do some research on that and found, because I had some people say, well, it should be the city's responsibility. And I did some research in communities in the lower 48 states and cities that gets the amount of snowfall that we get, and it's the same in those communities as well. So that it's the business, either the building owner or the business owner's responsibility to maintain the snow. So thank you for bringing that up. For clarifying that for me. Thank you.
Yeah, on that note, having been in Anchorage for the first big snow dump last week, it was interesting that sidewalks were maintained in front of the hotel, but then where it was kind of a no man's land. We were trudging through much snow, and of course the streets, well, we won't even get into that up in Anchorage. Other questions, comments for the city manager? No? I just want to thank you again for beginning the discussion, suggestion, and all of getting all the lights, because that's been I've had countless people tell me to thank you for, for the lights, because it brings so much joy, so it's a big deal for people. And if you haven't been out just driving around, you don't have to go to those specifics, just drive around a little bit. The lights are amazing. Any other questions for the city manager at this point? Okay, then we go now to the city attorney's report, which is on page 22. And Brooks, are you still on the phone?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Good evening from snowy Girdwood, and thank you for indulging me in staying off the road today. November was a fairly busy month. We got to the finish line on some relatively significant work, including the final completion of the sale of property to Venture. The chauffeur permit appeal was put to bed with a written decision after a hearing, and there's a deal in your packet this evening for selling another piece of property, this one to the Olympic Pride Marine Institute. And it's the purchaser is the Chugach Regional Resource Commission, who's been a long-term tenant. And, you know, this kind of concludes a fairly, not necessarily complex, but it was a little bit convoluted because we had to separate them out from a lease first that included the University of Alaska and get those into two separate parcels. And now we then negotiated kind of a new longer-term lease with them, which was designed to allow them to qualify for EDA funding. And now selling the property, I think, should make it even easier for them to qualify for grant funds in the future to expand their facility there. So it's a nice deal to get to the finish line. And I think, I'm not sure if that moots the joint grant application that we've been working with them on or not. I mean, that was also designed to increase the chances of receiving funding. And I'm not sure if these things are going to continue to proceed hand in hand, or if the joint grant application will fall by the wayside and they'll be able to apply for the grant on their own. The sale to ATA is in what's called the due diligence phase, which involves quite a bit of work. Essentially, they want to know everything there is to know about the utility that they're purchasing. So we've had multiple pages of requests for documents of all aspects of the operation. And that'll be ongoing at least for the next several weeks to try to complete that. In the meantime, I expect to receive an initial draft of the agreement later this week from the legal counsel to Homer Electric. Had a couple personnel matters last month that we don't talk too much about in this forum. Nothing that is poses some kind of alarming risk or anything like that. You don't have to worry about it. We're doing fine in our personnel relations as far as I'm concerned. There's some rezone ordinances we worked on, and one of those I think is in your packet as well. So that kind of sums up our work. There were a couple of document requests, a lease assignment, and that seems to be some work of that nature almost every month, and there was some more of it in November. I can take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for Brooks? I see no questions. I appreciate your report, and it was good to see you up at AML.
Yeah, I was glad you made it to the big city. We were Anchorage loves hosting, of course, and tells everyone to go out and spend a lot of money. I hope you cooperated in that effort.
It was adequate.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I meant to put, thank you, Brooks. I meant to put this on the agenda, but I didn't. I hope you forgive me. In other reports and announcements, we have our Borough Assembly rep here, and if you'll indulge me, can we allow her to give a report? I'm asking council here. We're okay with it? Okay, come on up, Cindy. I meant to put that on.
I'm sorry I've been gone for so many, but thanks. Mayor, council, administration, members of the public, there are items that are coming up at public hearings and enactment at tomorrow night's meeting at the Assembly that I think are interest to the Seward area. Ordinance 22-1929 appropriates supplemental funding of $216,165 from the Seward Bear Creek Flood Service Area Fund to replenish the emerging situations budget and to fund site maintenance projects in Lost Creek and Sawmill Creek. Besides the funding plan for the maintenance work at Lost Creek and Sawmill Creek, this ordinance will also refill the $20,000 that the Seward Bear Creek Flood Service Area put into an emerging situations budget. Since the service area was not originally set up as an emergency service area, they added this line item in 2017 so they could provide a way that they could respond to emergencies without a full meeting of the board. The budget of that $20,000 was spent in its entirety following the recent Bruno Road flooding. So this ordinance will replenish that and have it there for the next emergency. Ordinance 22-1931 appropriating $1,625,000 from the general fund to provide interim funding for preliminary design and development of the bond-funded school projects authorized by ballot Proposition 2 at the October 2022 election. These funds are a portion of the bonds funds approved for the 13 projects listed on the proposition. This appropriation will be for the start of 5 of those 13 projects. The Seward High School track and field is included in these first 5 projects, and the other projects will be distributed over the next 4 years. Ordinance 22-1926 accepting and appropriating the Year 2 opioid settlement funds distributed through the state of Alaska. The Kenai Peninsula Borough has received $30,653.98 for the Year 2 distribution amount. It's not a lot, but the first installment of these funds was received, and when that happened, there was a suggestion made by an assembly member that those funds should just be distributed to the Central and South Peninsula hospitals. Here we go, leaving out the Eastern Peninsula again. And so I hope there is an interested entity on the East Peninsula that would apply for that grant funds as they come available. Ordinance 2022-1927 is accepting and appropriating grant funds of $150,000 for the Kenai Peninsula Borough Fish Passage Project, a partnership with the Kenai Peninsula Borough and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. This partnership will result in planning, prioritizing, conceptual design, and stakeholder meetings in support of improving fish passages within the Kenai Peninsula Borough Road Service area. And this will also look into the bridges that are hampering the fish passage. Tomorrow night, there are ordinances for introduction. Ordinance 2244 is amending some sections of code 4.10.060 and 4.10.110 to eliminate the requirement that the informational election brochures be mailed to every borough box holder, and to eliminate the requirement of the borough clerk to seek authorships advocating approval and rejection of ballot propositions. The process of mailing out all those brochures costs about $30,000 every regular election, and due to the amount of brochures tossed at our post offices, this would eliminate the mailing of those brochures. They would still continue to post the brochure on the borough website, and you can request printed copies if you would like from the borough clerk's office. The second part of this amendment would eliminate the clerk's requirement to seek a pro or con statement on all the propositions. People can still make them, but they don't have to seek them out. The next ordinance is 2245, amending KPB 4.60.030, relating to the ballot tabulator testing before a runoff election. because there's been so much talk about these issues, I just wanted to make sure this was mentioned. The testing process that it takes for these tabulators requires 3 weeks to conduct. There's only 2 weeks before the February 14th election and the possibility of a runoff election. So they are asking to have those requirements to test waived. And that takes me to the mayoral election, which is scheduled for February 14th. The candidates are David Carey, Zachary Hamilton, Linda Farnsworth Hutchings, and Peter Machicki. This term that they'll be elected in will only run until the fall regular election. And the last thing I wanted to do was just to remind or inform the council that there are 2 recreation service areas in the Kenai Peninsula Borough, Nikiski and Soldovia's. Both are funded by service area mill rates. Soldovia's actually includes an incorporated city. Research into a recreation service area from the Y to Lowell Point for some funding for a recreation center should be a consideration of the council before nixing a much-needed recreation center. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay, are there any questions for our borough representative? I have a comment, though. When I was on, I think twice, we tried to eliminate the sending of the election brochures, and it was voted down. So we'll see what happens this time. I know personally one person that really, really reads that and takes it to vote, and one person. But that one person could get one by mail from the borough. They could print it out, or from the local office too. So if that one person is watching. Any questions? Yeah, Councilmember Bornall.
Yeah, Cindy, can you elaborate on the funding source for is it from Turn Lake down to Low Point?
Well, the recreation service areas have set boundaries. And so I think that the survey that was sent out included people from the Y to Lowell Point, because those people are visit Seward often, and a lot of the kids go to the schools and stuff. And so it would, if the recreation area was set, that would be what I would recommend that service area encompass, and then you'd set a mill rate. And I did give somebody, Stephen, did I give you the information on what a .25 mill rate would bring in from those areas? That I asked Sue, that I asked from the borough finance director what that money would bring in. You know, so, yeah. Great to see you on the council, by the way.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much, Cindy. Appreciate it. Okay, that brings us to resolutions. We're on the second page of the agenda. And the first is Resolution 2022-123. Madam Clerk, would you please read that?
Actually, Madam Mayor, just for clarification,
Resolution
Resolution 123 and 128 will go under item 10, new business.
Oh, that's right. That's the new thing
So
now,
the first
isn't it?
thing would be
Sorry.
public hearings.
Okay, sorry. That's the new deal that I'll never learn. Okay, good. Then, this is even more exciting. We're up to resolutions requiring a public hearing. And that's what everybody's probably here for. And the first one, am I correct, is Resolution 2022-117. Madam Clerk, would you please read that for the public?
Resolution 2022-117 is adopting the City of Seward 2023 and 2024 operating budget and setting the mill rate. This item had a public hearing on November 28, 2022, and is coming tonight for a second public hearing and approval. The original motion was made by DeMoss and seconded by Wells. Your main motion is on the floor.
Okay, thank you. And this appears on page 226 of the packet, if the public is wanting to look there. And start with administration. Would you like to say some things, and then we'll open it for public hearing?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only thing I probably would speak to is as you know, the need to adopt this evening, because the charter states that the budget has to be adopted at a regular meeting not less than 10 days before the end of the calendar year. And even if we had had our second December meeting, that is less than 10 days before the calendar year. So tonight is the night, and as you know, we've had many meetings about it, so tonight's the night. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'll open the public hearing on Resolution 2022-117. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed in for that?
Yes, ma'am. The first person signed in is Stephanie Mullane.
And let me say, on public hearings, your comments you are allowed 5 minutes per person on this.
I'm Stephanie Mullane. I live outside city limits, but I do own a business within city limits. And first, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to make sure our community is great for all of us. I know the budgeting process isn't easy, and I appreciate the time and effort you've put into making sure our community is financially sound. As some of you know, I am a chamber board member. However, I'm here speaking as a small business owner. I own Sunny Cove Kayaking with a staff of 16 seasonal people and 2 year-round people. My business hosts up to 8,000 guests in the summer season. My small business has a limited marketing budget, and I depend on the chamber to act as an extension of my marketing plan. The chamber's ability to showcase Seward to a very broad market plays a large role in the success of my business, and I would argue every business in and around Seward. Why is it so nerve-wracking? I know most of you. When the chamber influences a person to visit Seward, they are increasing the chances that local businesses, the city, and the borough will have an opportunity to benefit financially from that person. Let's say one person is researching a visit to Alaska and they find the chamber's beautiful website, their visitor's guide, hometown guide, marine guide, or call the chamber for advice. The info they receive convinces them they should visit Seward, and they make a reservation at a local lodging property, and that property's rates include 3% to the city, 4% to the borough, and a 4% bed tax. Hopefully, I'm lucky enough to have done my marketing homework, and this guest finds Sunny Cove Kayaking. The tour they choose includes the 3% city tax, 4% borough tax, a $3.50 port fee, and a $4 state park fee. This tour also includes charter transportation, which supports another local company. Additionally, this guest has chosen to donate to our Paddle for a Purpose program, and Sunny Cove has matched their donation, supporting the Seward Community Foundation. That guest has also given me the opportunity to provide meaningful employment, fair pay, and benefits to tax-paying employees who, in turn, like guests, will eat in our restaurants, drink at our bars, access our health facilities, purchase goods from our local stores and gift shops, fuel up at our fuel stations, hire taxis to get around town, and book other tours, all of which generate 3% city tax, 4% borough tax, and often other city, state, or federal fees. Now, assuming the guest isn't traveling alone and probably has a family of 4, those taxes and fees are quadrupled. If that family stays 2 nights at $2.50 per night, that's $20 as a bed tax pass-through, $10 of which supports the chamber. Also, according to Alaska.org, the average traveler can expect to spend about $400 per day in Alaska, leading to about $12 per day in Seward in tax revenue per person. I think it's incredible how in this scenario, the investment in the chamber, after the deduction of the bed tax, leads to a return on investment of nearly $10 per guest. That's outstanding. My business can't do that. And that's per day into the city's general fund. I find it amazing that a community of 3,500 people located 110 miles from the nearest airport, large airport, and thousands of miles away from potential travelers has access to a chamber that can attract people who contribute so much to our local, borough, state, federal, and nonprofit economy. As a business owner, it's clear to me that we all benefit by having our chamber act as our primary business and marketing support organization. I'm asking the City Council continues to give its marketing partner, the Seward Chamber, full financial support and votes against any cuts to the chamber's portion of the bed tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Madam Mayor, next on in is Melissa Scudder.
Thank you. My name is Melissa Scudder. I reside outside of city limits and I work inside city limits. Thank you, City Council and City Administration, for all that you do for our community. I'm proud to have served on the Board of Directors for the Seward Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center since 2014. I feel that the staff of the Chamber has done an excellent job marketing Seward as a world-class travel destination. Bed tax dollars that we are discussing today is a testament to the great work the Chamber is doing. I am a little nervous, sorry. I am here today to show my support for the Seward Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center and respectfully request that the city continues the marketing partnership with the Chamber and I ask that you vote against any cuts to the Chamber's portion of the bed tax funds. I understand that the steady increase in bed tax revenue and the corresponding increase in funds provided to the Chamber has raised some concerns regarding the need and use of the funds. As one council member stated to me, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, there needs to be a limit on how much the Chamber is given. I'd like to point out that the Chamber is not given this money. It is a pass-through tax paid by visitors and earned through the marketing efforts and hard work of Chamber staff, the Board of Directors, and the various committees. The Chamber has a budget that is reviewed by the Finance Committee and approved by the Board of Directors. This budget is looked at by the Finance Committee and the Board every month, and care is taken to ensure that all funds are used appropriately. The original intent of the bed tax, as voted by the voters, was to collect revenue from visitors and use those funds to provide for the promotion of tourism and the development of the visitor infrastructure and services. It was later decided that the Chamber of Commerce would be contracted to provide the marketing service for the City of Seward, paid for with a percentage of the bed tax funds. Our Chamber is unique in that it functions not only as a Chamber of Commerce, which is a member-based organization, but a visitor center. Members and non-members benefit. The funds received from the Chamber's share of the bed tax revenue work to promote Seward as a year-round travel and business destination. Winter weekends, the Hometown Guide, and the Marine Guide are just a few examples of how the Chamber is using the funds to help member and non-member, tourism and non-tourism related businesses generate business. Many local businesses rely on the Chamber's ability to market Seward on a global scale. Cutting the funds provided to the Chamber for marketing will be detrimental to the businesses that rely on the Chamber to market on their behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Madam Mayor, next is Kat Sorensen.
Hi, my name is Kat Sorensen and I live inside city limits, and I am the Executive Director of the Seward Chamber of Commerce. I want to once again thank City Administration and Council for their diligent work on the FY23, FY24 budget, and thank the Council for continuing to support the Seward Chamber of Commerce. Since last meeting, I've honed the Chamber's FY23 budget with the help of my board. Previously, I've been working on a budget that utilized the norm of the last 20 years, which is a 50% of the bed tax at $350,000 for FY23. Since then, I've cut several programs for agenda, creating a well-rounded and tight budget at the proposed $300,000. I've shared this draft with City Administration and several council members. Within it, we have a few big-ticket items. The first is salaries, as usual. On our staff, we have 2 salaried positions whose work is categorized in marketing and visitor infrastructure. This is our visitor experiences and events coordinator and our communications coordinator. These salaries total about $84,000, not including any benefits. We also hire 5 part-time seasonal staff to work the Derby booth, cruise ship terminal, and visitor center with hourly wages from $18 an hour to $22 an hour, which is the norm, if not lower, for seasonal work in Seward. With nearly 300,000, I think it was like 278 visitors passing through Seward each summer, these 5 employees work diligently to make sure both guests and locals have all the information they need to enjoy Seward. Any other gaps in work are often filled with volunteers if and when we can find them. My salary and our membership coordinator's salary are not paid with any city monies. Other big ticket items include Seward.com and our visitor guide. This year, the paper and production for the visitor guide alone totals $54,000. This doesn't include the cost of shipping the guide out across the state, country, and world, or the months of photo rights aggregation and design that go into it. We also have an eye-catching and informative website at Seward.com. Our contract with this content management system called SimpleView runs at $25,000 a minimum annually. This doesn't include any added features or functionality. SimpleView is the industry standard for destination websites and is used across the state and the world in cities like Homer, the Matsu Valley, Anchorage, and Travel Alaska. The remainder of our funded work is in trade shows for the marine and tourism industry, a slew of digital marketing for all industries in Seward, building infrastructure and maintenance to provide the best visitor experience, our winter weekends and events, economic development and support like Startup Week, and our general community support for the city and its residents. Outside of the city's contractual funding, the remainder of the Seward Chamber of Commerce's budget is made up of proceeds from our membership, the Seward Silver Salmon Derby, and the Mount Marathon Race. In 2002, this past year, the Mount Marathon Race brought in a net income of just over $10,000, while the Salmon Derby brought in $46,000. But We in turn paid Cook Inlet Aquaculture $37,500 for further fund fish restoration in Resurrection Bay, cutting into that net income significantly, leaving about $9,000, if my math that quick is good. As always, I'd be happy to walk through our budget line by line with anyone who's interested. We are not a large organization with $1 million budget. We are a lean, effective, and diligent team, and we work tirelessly to provide a great service to this community and our city within our budget. With that said, $50,000 to the Seward Chamber is an entire staff member. It is our website. It is the print edition of our visitor guide. It is our weekends, our startup weeks, our community engagement. So I ask you to please move forward with the budget at $300,000 funding level for the Chamber, and in the future, I hope we can work together to solidify a sound funding formula for the work that the Chamber does for the city. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Madam Mayor, last signed in is Cliff Krug.
Good evening. My name is Cliff Krug. I reside inside city limits and own a business within city limits as well. Before I begin, I wanted to thank the city administration for all the lights and also for helping keep the sidewalks clear of snow in the harbor area. While I will serve as a chamber board member in 23, I'm here tonight as a very invested small business owner. My wife Linda and I own Forest Tides and Treasures. We employ 5 full-time year-round employees and 16 seasonal. In 2021, we processed almost 24,000 transactions. This year, we've done almost 29,000 to date. We've worked with the Chamber extensively over the last 5 years and have grown as a direct result of all of our partnerships with the Chamber. And while we've experienced some moments of frustration when working with the Chamber, we recognize without question that we are more successful today because of the Chamber's efforts, initiatives, and the tools that they provided to small businesses like ours. So I stand here before you as a concerned business owner confused about why a reduction to the bed tax allocation to the Seward Chamber has been proposed. Some of the people already have pointed out the city contracts to the Chamber to provide the marketing that generates the very bed tax dollars you guys want to cut. A Chamber budget exists and is presented to the council for approval. There are no surprises. It's an open book. You can see clearly what they do and what the results are, and the record shows that they're doing a great job. The staffing, the Chamber uses the bed tax funds not only to promote Seward, but also to help staff the visitor center. Both tasks require competency and a standard of professionalism that I've heard many of you to refer to already in the past, positively, more than positively. It's a great deal what they're doing. On this contract with them, if you did the equivalent work, contracting out to third parties would easily cost significantly more than what you're currently paying. And we personally know firsthand how expensive it is when you start doing that. And then, as it was mentioned, the return on investment, the Chamber provides an outstanding return on investment that any business would dream of achieving. They make these bed tax dollars you allocate to them grow. Their work literally touches every business, whether at the height of the season, or the quiet of the off season. The ripples impact everyone. They get people into our businesses year round. And we need their help to make that happen. And actually, in my opinion, the Chamber needs more funds, not less. There's so much untapped opportunity in front of Seward today. We need to let the Chamber do what they do and give them the funds to do that. The fiscal responsibility and cutting corners are 2 different things, I would suggest. We've worked with 3 different Chamber teams over the last 5 years, and it hasn't always been easy. And I think that keeping the funding in full is one of the important steps to allowing for a continued and sustainable growth throughout for the Chamber. And especially as many of us know, the marketing industry is always in flux and evolving, and it's especially important to have the right people in the right place. There are real challenges when crafting and holding a message and moving those messages between all the different platforms utilized by the diverse and broad array of visitors that are considering coming to Seward. The Seward Chamber does these things very well. Please don't diminish their ability to do that. Seek to give them the ability to thrive instead. You've seen what they can already do at the current levels of funding. The benefits, again, are tangible and measurable. So at a minimum tonight, I urge you to not reduce their current funding. And I thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. And that was all that signed in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak on Resolution 2022-117? Come on up.
Tim McDonald, Inside City Limits. I think he'd make a good candidate for being in the chamber, on the board at least. I urge somebody on the council to enter a last-minute resolution on this budget to just fund $500,000 for this community center. I mean, I see this thing getting beat to death in the last 2 months. There's been at least 3 meetings. I don't know how long it's been going on. But I think the city still owns Jesselee Home, the real estate where it stood. Is that correct? Well, I'm not supposed to answer that, but as far as I know, they do. And you know, we could do something where we don't have to gold plate it, and we don't have to have a half a dozen employees and built-in overhead. I still think an enclosed is not the way to go. Even right now, if it has a sloped roof where it sheds the snow, a little bit of eave, you can have a lip around it. Half the thing can be a basketball court in the summer, what the kids want. In the winter, you could flood the thing and make an ice ring out of it, or have both of it. Have it that long, open walls, electric heat down in there, and no employees, very limited maintenance, paint the thing every 5 years, and you'd have something the kids that'll use. You know, I don't mean to pick on that bike park out at Forest Acres, and I know there's somebody that's used it. I know somebody here's got a kid that's used it, but I've never seen a kid in that bike park, and it's right there by the highway. They probably don't like that anyway. You know, kids don't like to be watched, and that's the thing. If you do it like that, they can use it and play basketball, and they don't feel like there's, you know, a hall monitor looking over their shoulder on it, but yet it's still an open thing, and, you know, if there's ever any problems, the whole neighborhood can see it. Make it something like Jesselee has access to the kids from Forest Acres, you know, Clearview, 3 or 4 different neighborhoods surround it. Right there, put it in, make it work, no overhead, no employees, done deal. If that one works, next budget, you can put another one in a different sort of town, the same thing. The thing is you're not building in the overhead, and that's a lot of things that people have to worry about money, and I realize you guys don't, but people that are in business and have to worry about money, that's what they look at. Is this more built-in overhead? And that's the big flaw I see in this thing. You're going to build a Taj Mahal and nobody will use it. You know, let's build something that the kids will use and build up from there if there's a demand, but start with something that'll work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Emergency resolution.
Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak to the budget? Anyone that has previously spoken could speak for a second time for up to 1 minute, if you should choose. I didn't mention that before. Okay, nobody else wants to speak. All right, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. What you got? Anybody have any amendments or additions, or are we good? Councilmember Wells.
I would just like to say that although I support not reducing the chamber's budget any less than $300,000, I personally am in full support of them continuing to receive the 50% bed tax as they've been receiving in the past. I do understand that the $300,000 is makes it easier for the chamber to budget and the community, the city to budget, but I do think that they more than generate that money back to the city. So at the very least, I'm going to support the budget at the $300,000 cap, but I want it stated that I'm in more support of them continuing to receive the 50%.
Thank you. Other comments, Councilman, or Vice Mayor Osenga?
I just had a question for Councilmember Wells. You said cap. Is that what you're going for then?
No, so I understand that we've put it in the budget at $300,000.
Yes.
For the chamber, so we can put whatever word on it that we want, but it is less than they would traditionally receive at the 50% bed tax. So we could call it a cap. We can call it I can't think of any other term to call it.
Vice Mayor.
Okay. So they've received over 300,000?
No, they should have.
Okay, I thought you said they did receive over 300,000. So I was just trying to.
Councilmember Wells.
Sorry, maybe I misspoke. If they would have received their traditional 50% bed tax, it would be over $300,000.
This time?
Follow up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Other comments, questions, Councilmember Finch?
I played tourist this past week, looking at the Chamber of Commerce's website here and where I have been in the world. And I understand that they're promoting the businesses that are memberships. But they don't have a list of all the businesses. You don't have to promote them, but I think the Chamber should have a list of all businesses in Seward that a tourist can go to and say what businesses are there. Because the other Chamber of Commerces I went and looked at, they've had businesses there that weren't being promoted, but it was a running list.
That might be a suggestion that we could talk about. Thank you. Other additions or modifications to the budget? Vice Mayor Osenga.
So, I guess, as everyone probably is aware, I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I wasn't here for the discussion that brought up this possible deduction. I guess I'm trying to figure out where are we at now or what is being proposed, dollar amount, and, because I'm not clear.
Are you referring to the chamber or just?
Just to the chamber.
Oh, yeah. Madam City Manager, could you elaborate?
On page 29 of the budget, it's under General Services. There. The packet number is, page number is 258. Under the line item of 7801, contributions to chamber, 300,000. And I guess for a clarification, I would call it a set amount versus a cap, because it isn't a cap of anything, it is a set amount that is proposed for the 300,000.
Vice Mayor.
So the only question I have, if it's a set amount, what's going to happen if we have another COVID year and we still would have to pay we would still be owing, so I guess that kind of alarms me. I'm almost more in favor of a cap than a set amount, so that it would be 50% of the bed tax capped at, instead of saying we're going to continue this. I guess that's just my observation.
Okay. Any other comments or amendments? Councilmember Wells.
To what Councilmember Osenga said, let's keep in mind that during the COVID year, the chamber received less than $170,000, and they didn't get that money till 2021. And they still were voted the best chamber in the state, #1, right? So yes, there is a chance with a set amount, if I understand this correctly, that if we had another COVID year, right, that the chamber would be locked in at $300,000. However, as we could tell, the following year was way above projections, and the chamber is now taking, with this set amount, a loss. So if the chamber and this community continues to grow the bed tax, but the chamber has a set amount of $300,000, and they do that 3 years in a row, that's an additional $150,000, just throwing a number, right? If they did the same thing they did in 2021, That's an additional $150,000 that goes into the city budget that could have gone or should have gone to the chamber. So if we do have another COVID year and the city is responsible for $300,000, where are we really at in the city budget when with a set amount? Does that make sense? No? Okay, let me try it again.
You lost
so,
me.
Okay, so I'll try it again.
Wells.
The chamber used to receive 50% of the bed tax. And had they have received 50% of the bed tax from 2021, which was a phenomenal year post-COVID, they would have received upwards of $350,000. Okay? So now the city, with this change of a set amount, is keeping $50,000 that would have gone to the chamber. If the chamber consistently does the marketing that they've been doing with the budget, right? That means we'll continue to grow our community, we'll continue to grow the bed tax, we'll continue to grow the sales tax, but the chamber is set at $300,000. So the city consistently comes out ahead each year. Therefore, if we did have another COVID year, and the city had to turn around and pay $300,000, when if they would have been on the 50-50, let's say it would have been $150,000, the city is still breaking even in that sense.
Councilman, Vice Mayor Osenga.
So I guess what I'm hearing is, what you're saying is that we would take that 50,000 and set it aside somewhere to hold on to. That's what I'm.
Could we ask administration to weigh in on this?
Technically, no. I mean, I understand where Councilmember Wells is going, as far as math-wise, but technically, no, in the general fund, that's not how it works, unless the council has a transfer to then the reserves. So, I think what he's doing is, if I may, demonstrating what would happen, how much we would be paying at the 50% versus the set amount. And then in a COVID year, we would not have been paying that full 50% all along, so there'd be a savings there. Does that make sense?
Well, I understand, I'm sorry.
Vice Mayor Osenga.
I understand that you're talking about there's a savings there, but the savings isn't set aside for this specific purpose. It would just go to the general fund, and then we would use it for fixing sidewalks, or we would see, hey, we have something else that we can do with this. Okay. Thanks.
And
Councilmember Finch.
thank you, Madam Mayor. If anybody hasn't noticed, I was watching the other day, the influenza across the country is skyrocketing. A lot of the beds in Alaska hospitals already are full. So you never know what we could be facing. So being conservative and setting a 300,000, I can understand that. Because if it comes under, like you're saying, they still get 300,000 for promoting. If influenza takes off across the country and hurts our bed tax, they still have 300,000, not 225,000 because of it.
Councilmember Barnwell?
Yeah, I'm in favor of the set language, using set. I think the council, or the chamber, benefits a lot by having a consistent budget. I don't think they can, many of us have run businesses here. If you don't have that consistent employees and the expectation of those funds, I think it's a lot tougher for them to operate. Also, when they were in a deficit during COVID, they, for instance, as an example, had to underfund the fish that from Coconut Aquaculture. That's just an example of one of probably many things that they had to kind of cut back on. And I think from the testimony today, it's pretty clear that the chamber does a lot for this community. And I think we really just have to be consistent with them and understand that they have to run the business, even if it is another COVID year. It's really important that they have that consistency on that market. So it's my position.
It's time for my annual question/statement about that budgets are fluid documents and things can change, and there's a mid-year correction to the budget always, so things could be revised mid-year or along the way if necessary in an emergency too. Any other things, statements, questions, amendments from council? Are we ready to actually vote on the budget? It appears we're ready, Madam Mayor.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2022-117. Just to clarify, I believe this is with no amendments from the last meeting or tonight. So as presented. Barnwell,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Mayor McClure.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you very much. Before we go to the next one, I'm going to ask across the board, do we need a 5-minute break? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, we'll continue on then. Next public hearing item is Resolution 2022-121. This is a long one to read, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2022-121 is recommending Kenai Peninsula Borough approval of the preliminary replat of Lot 4A-1 and Lot 4D, Block 7, 4th of July Creek Subdivision, Seward Marine Industrial Center, Raybo replat, creating 4 lots, Lot 4D1, Lot 4A2, Lot 4A3, and Lot 4A4, vacating the west 5 feet utility easement of Lot 4D, Block 7, 4th of July Subdivision, SMIC, Raybo replat, and east 5 feet utility easement of Lot 4A1, Block 7, 4th of July Creek Subdivision, SMIC, Raybo replat.
Phew. Okay, I'd ask, we need a motion to approve and a second for this one.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-121.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Before we do the public hearing, Madam City Manager, would you give us an overview?
Sure.
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd ask Community Development Director Bickling to come up to report on this.
Thank you.
That's hard.
Good evening, council members. So this is just a preliminary replat over in the SMIC area. And so this is so that way, basically JAG would like to lease a larger parcel and expand their operations to the east of their current operation. And so, so this is just creating a piece of land that we can have a conversation about for a lease. So more or less.
Okay, thank you. Did you have anything else? Okay, I'll open the public hearing for Resolution 2022-121. Madam Clerk, has anybody signed in?
We do not have anyone signed in.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would wish to speak to this particular resolution? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Council, do you have anything, discussion, questions, etc.? It seems pretty straightforward to me. Are we good? Okay, Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to vote on this.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2022-121, Calhoun,
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Barnwell,
Yes.
Mayor McClure.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Okay, thank you. And now, to our final public hearing for the night. It's Resolution 2022-122. When you're ready, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2022-122 is authorizing the city manager to enter into and execute the purchase and sale agreement and related documents with Chugach Regional Resources Commission for the sale of 1.52 acres of land and the related improvements and fixtures, physical address 101 Railway Avenue, parcel 149-20016, in the amount of $500,000.
Okay, thank you. I need a a motion to approve and a second.
Move for the approval of Resolution 2022-1, what am I at? Sorry, 128.
122.
Or 120.
122.
What am I? 122, sorry.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Administration, I guess it's time for you to chime in on this one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm going to ask the Assistant City Manager to speak to this one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So there's a few points that I would make about this. There's been a little bit of dialogue in the public about why the city would dispose of a more than $2 million parcel for less than fair market value. Couple things, there is a vested public interest in doing so. While the city contributed to this project, the only contribution was the land itself, which the fair market value as determined by the appraisal was $500,000. The facility itself was constructed using EVOS money by the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. And the historical use has changed hands numerous times in the facility's history, but it's always been used for aquaculture and mariculture. Because of the funding requirement, this facility must continue to be used for mariculture. So it's really, really important to keep that in mind. And also the city has a no-cost lease to CRRC that is good through 2069 with a 25-year option to extend. So if we don't sell this parcel, it'll continue in a zero-cost lease through 2069 with a 25-year option to extend. So it's of a benefit to the city to sell the parcel. It's also of a benefit to CRRC. I think of this facility as kind of one of the rare gems in our community where there is a ton that goes on in that building that folks don't know about. A ton of cool stuff that has a global impact, literally. I would encourage council to vote yes to move forward. And this also opens up grant funding opportunities for APMI to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Did you have anything else to add?
You know, I just wanted to touch on that, Stephen brought it up, is that this facility does have a global impact, and if you haven't been there, they do give tours. It's pretty amazing, and no one knows, so just putting a plug out there for the amazing work that they do, and here in Seward, and it's awesome.
Okay, thank you. I will open the public hearing now for Resolution 2022-122. Madam Clerk.
Madam Mayor, we have two people signed in. The first is Willow Hetrick.
Evening, Willow Hetrick. I live outside of city limits. I'm the Executive Director of Chugach Regional Resources Commission. We're the operator of your Mariculture Technical Center, which we call the Alludic Pride Marine Institute. We're at 101 Railway Avenue, same campus as the Sea Life Center and the University of Alaska Fairbanks. We've been seeing you a lot lately. Thank you for your support over the last few years. Before you today is a proposal to purchase the property and the building. I'm sure you're wondering, and my board asked me the same questions, why? Why take on debt when you have a fee-free lease? Why own an aging facility that has substantial restrictions on its use? How are you going to take care of the cost of owning that facility? So here are my answers, which I hope makes the council feel justified in supporting the disposition of the city's real property at our proposed price. Ownership of the property and the building opens opportunity for us to obtain funding to increase and improve the footprint. Although the long-term lease we recently signed is a marked improvement, it doesn't have the same weight as ownership. Funding sources for capital improvement projects emphasize and strengthen ownership. In addition, ownership increases the opportunity to brand our space and align it with our mission that will increase our visibility and attract new financial support. A permanent home creates a sense of place for us, and it's an anchor for our Alaska Native constituency. Second, we're confident that the land will appreciate over time. While we have a forever hold strategy and will not realize gains by directly selling the building, the equity could still be helpful. It could guarantee us for a loan, for instance, if we needed to borrow capital for cash flow purposes or to launch a new program. Having the asset on our balance sheet can also make us look stronger to both funders and lenders. Lastly, beyond those very clear-cut advantages of ownership, having a permanent home will empower us to further our missions. not having to collaborate with our landlord on land use and grant application support, being seen as an anchor in the community, and increasing our buying and spending power can accelerate our work. The power of ownership will give us space to think differently about our work, and we realign our priorities as we become more rooted in this city and further our commitment to the Chugach region. So ownership is not without its challenges. You all should know that. And I'm sure once you agree to sell this property, you definitely don't want it back, and you definitely don't want it to sit there rotting. And I have a solid plan not to let that happen. So debt. We are in a lease agreement with the Bureau of Indian Affairs that pays for our mortgage payments. Capital improvements. That same program with the Bureau of Indian Affairs gives us money in reserve to plan and pay for large capital expenses that require our attention. From the roof to the HVAC systems, costs like these, if unplanned for, could be debilitating, but we already have that money in reserve waiting for us to just get to work and find contractors. So responsibility of ownership. We've been your lessee for the past 25 years and are a functioning organization without daily support of the city, and that will continue as we move forward. And continue our research and development in the mariculture industry. While going through this development process, we've already increased attention to our organization through several capital campaigns to expand our facility, and we're looking forward to furthering those conversations with some funders, both federal and private funders. So owning the land and the building is going to be powerful for us. The security of place and financial consistency that comes with ownership will let us diversify and explore ways to deepen our impact to Seward. I do want to say thank you to the administration for getting us this far, and to you, the City of Seward, for being about the best landlord anyone could ask for. Whatever decision you make tonight, we're not done collaborating, and we look forward to furthering our impact together.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
And last signed in is Jeff Hedrick.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Hetrick. I live outside of the city of Seward in Moose Pass. And I'm the director of Look to Pride Marine Institute. I have been for over 20 years. And I've watched it grow and diversify to now it's a premier marine research center. Just this morning, a big article came out in Hatchery International about some of the programs we have there. So we're getting more and more press as a reflection of some of the efforts of our executive staff. We're excited about the possibility of owning the facility. You know, the ownership adds additional opportunity. The title of the property is what Willow mentioned, how important that is for the funders that are looking to help us expand to meet some of the needs that we have right now. We have added a lot of employees. We have a huge need for additional office space. We need research lab space. We need space for additional production of most recently kelp and red king crab. This past year we produced 4 different types of clams for enhancement projects around South Central Alaska, including Seward. We did sea cucumbers and abalone for Southeast Alaska partners. We've done things like octopus and halibut. We're doing bidarkies, which is a chitin for native communities in Nambolic, which no one has ever done. So we do a lot of pioneering fun stuff, as mentioned by the staff, and we do love them to come see it. This past year, we just produced 10 miles of kelp string for growers in Juneau, 5 private farms in Prince William Sound, and 2 in Kachemak Bay. And we anticipate that need to continue to grow, and we could use some more space to do that. Most recently, we started what's called CHROME, which is Chugach Region Ocean Monitoring Program. And we sample within our communities, including Seward, for ocean acidification, marine nutrients, basic chemistry such as temperature and salinity and alkalinity, and those sorts of things. More importantly, looking for harmful algae. We have just completed a project here in Seward looking at toxicity for our shellfish here and around the region. We have partners throughout the state as far as the Iqaluit, St. Paul, Nome, down Aleutian Chain, Cold Bay, all the way down Southeast Alaska, Sitka and beyond. They send us samples, we have the capacity to process them. And with that laboratory capacity, we have now 2 master's students. We have a science director who grew up and was raised here in Seward. So we're kind of a community-based organization. The question would be, if I was sitting in your shoes, what's in it for the city of Seward, right? Our success benefits the city by contributing to a diversified year-round economy. We've gone from 4 to 12 employees in the past few years. Our payroll exceeds $700,000. This year alone, we spent over $3 million in Seward alone with city businesses. We try to buy locally as much as possible. They're our friends. We feel like an integral part of the community, and we hope to continue to do that. We pride ourselves in sourcing locally. We pride ourselves in hiring locally. So most of our employees are longtime Seward residents. You know many of them. If you don't know them, come down and meet them. We're really proud of our employee retention. Like I said, we try to hire locally. We provide scholarships. We provide internships. We try to keep our people. We have had no turnover in the last 5 or 6 years or more. In fact, I can't remember the last employee. One of my shortcomings is reaching out to the Seward community and sharing our exciting programs that we have down at ATMI. So I'd like to officially extend an invitation for folks to come and visit. We recently hired an education outreach coordinator, and she has already made great strides in collaborating with many of the nonprofits and government organizations in Seward in her short 2 months being with us. So I encourage you to support us, help us continue to grow, and do the cool things that we do. Thank you.
Thank you. And no one else has signed
No,
up?
ma'am.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on Resolution 2022-122? Okay, do either of you wish to have another minute to speak? Okay, no one else. All right. I'll close the public hearing then and bring it back to council. What are your thoughts, questions, etc.? Silence. You're always there, Councilmember Wells.
In the beginning, before I got a chance to really look into this, I had voiced those same concerns that some folks in the community, why would we sell this property? But I want to give thank you to administration for putting together such detailed explanations and understanding, and it became very clear to me that we should support this. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. And I agree with that. I've never been on the tour. I have to take the time to do that. I want to see the darkies. Any other comments? Okay, Madam Clerk, I believe we're ready to vote.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2022-122. Calhoun?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Bosenga?
Yes.
Mayor McClure?
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Okay, thank you. Now, good job. We have a couple other items that were removed from the consent agenda, and I'm going to ask the question again. Do we need a 5-minute break? Okay, we'll continue along then. Moving down through, where am I? We're in new business, other new business, I guess, item 10. Right. And so we have Resolution 2022-123, which was removed from the consent agenda. And so now it's up, and I would request a motion for approval and a second.
Read it. Can I read it?
Oh, read it, please. Yeah.
Resolution 2022-123 is authorizing the city manager to extend the contract with Carmen Jackson CPA LLC for finance and accounting services until December 31st, 2023.
Now I'd request a motion for approval and a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-123.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. And this is on page 84 of the packet. Administration, would you like to comment or speak on this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This legislation authorizes $75,000 for the remainder of 2022, and then located within the budget is an appropriation for Carmen Jackson Services for 2023. And then in 2024, the budget includes the amount to hire a finance director. I do want to say that we are continuing with recruitment for a finance director, and certainly if we find that finance director out there, then this would change, obviously, and then the finance director position would be funded, and this would be unfunded, and we would do what we need to do for the budget purposes.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Calhoun, you asked to remove this, so do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, I asked for it to be removed just for some of that explanation on why we're expending these funds. Because as anybody, if they've looked at the budget, knows we're paying more for the service than we would be paying for a finance director. And so I just wanted people to understand the reason that we were doing that they've been looking for a finance director. We've talked about some options, and they may be looking into some other things, but one of the main things I wanted to understand too was just that fact that if we do find a finance director, that we can terminate this without any liability to us beyond that time. So, and that was just more transparency or clarification on why we're doing what we're doing.
Thank you very much. That's important. Madam City Manager. Yeah.
I do want to add to, thank you for that, and in addition to the finance director services that Carmen Jackson provides for us, it's also, as you know, we've had vacant positions, and they've filled in the vacant positions, and then audit prep and help us get processes and procedures put in place as well. So they've been of great value to us, and I really enjoy working with them. And as we are become less vacant positions and more are filled, and we're able to do some of the services that they're doing now, we will be taking them over, basically merging them out.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, ready to vote?
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2022-123, Osenga,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Barnwell,
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
Mayor McClure.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Okay, thank you. And we have one more item down in number 10A, resolutions that was removed from the consent agenda, and that would be Resolution 2022-128. Could you read the title?
Resolution 2022-128 is adopting the City of Seward's 6-year capital improvement plan.
Okay, thank you. I would request a motion for approval and a second, please.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-128.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. It is on page 151 of the packet. Madam City Manager, would you like to speak to this?
The Seward City Code requires that a 6-year capital improvement plan be submitted to the council for adoption. A couple things to note about it is that it does not appropriate funds for the indicated projects, and that the approval of the projects will come before you, and appropriations need to be made for that as well. And I'd also like to note, as the mayor did earlier, this is also a living document that can be amended, and we're always hopeful, or not only hopeful, we strive to obtain funding for these projects. So, it does change as it needs to change.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Calhoun, you removed this also, so do you want to?
Yeah, I just actually had a couple of changes to it that I'd like to look at. One would be on page 157 of the packet, under water. It's a moderate risk capital need, and the item I'm looking at is distribution piping upgrades.
Okay, hold on. Oh, so it's like the
It's
third
the
one down.
third one down.
Okay.
Yeah. And what I'd like to do is the projected, forecast project cost is $3 million. And I know looking at hopefully getting those funds through an infrastructure grant, what I would like to do is actually put that $3 million under the 2023 cost, just in case we get that infrastructure grant, so that it's there in 2023, and we can, possibly look at it.
Okay. Administration, do you want to comment on that? Is that like?
Madam Mayor, thank you. I would say that is perfectly acceptable. It is one of our priorities, and also we are seeking funding through infrastructure funding when it becomes available, as we know it has not yet. So that's acceptable.
Okay. Would you make a motion to that effect then? I think we have to have a motion, right, as an amendment to this? Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I will make that motion to amend the CIP to move the $3 million cost to the 2023 line item there.
To the, okay. Do you want to state?
For the distribution piping
There you go.
upgrades, ductile iron pipe.
There you go. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion on the amendment? I don't see that this changes a whole lot, and it does make sense to me, I think. I would not have thought of that. Okay, we ready to vote on the amendment? Okay, Madam Clerk?
Voting on the amendment, Wells,
Yes.
Barnwell,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Finch.
Yes.
Osenga.
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
Okay, and did you have something else?
I guess I should go ahead and make an amendment to start with so we can discuss it properly. I would like to amend the CIP, and I'm going to say that it's under Parks and Rec, and add in the Community Rec Center.
Okay, and that's, you made a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do you want to speak to that?
I think that although we realize it's a fairly expensive project that the city cannot really afford on its own, I don't want it to fall by the wayside, because I support it. It's just all about financing and timing. So I would like to keep it kind of on our radar, at least in this point, and so that as we work through and we can talk about it more, that it's still there in an official capacity.
I have a question. Would you be adding it what year and how much money?
I would probably, well, that's a good point, Mayor, thank you. I would look at 2026 and put it at $20 million, because I'm sure would be what it would run then if we were to pay for it, at least that.
Is that part of your motion then?
I will amend my motion
Does
to
the,
include that.
does the person who seconded agree with that
Yes.
amendment? Okay, so we can talk about the amendment. Any discussion? Councilmember Barnwell.
I don't completely understand. Jenna, you might have to help me with this thing, but I'm a really strong proponent of getting our strategic plan initiated this year, as soon as possible. I think we have more pressing things in the recreational center at this point, but including fire and police, and obviously public works. But like Mike said, I think that we need to keep this on the docket, because it's a hugely beneficial to our community, and eventually we should get it done. And I think taking it off would be a mistake. I think we just need to keep that on that long range and keep working on it. So again, I think the community needs to have this discussion. I think we need to hash this out and figure out where we're gonna be, where we're going. But I don't wanna lose this. We've put 100,000 into the plan. It doesn't make sense to just drop it at this point. Let's keep it on the radar. We're not committing these funds, we're just saying, hey, this is on our radar, so.
Okay, other discussion? Vice Mayor Olsenka.
I just wanted a clarification, and I think I'll have to ask administration, is this actually on our CIP list? It is not currently on our, so we're not removing it. It's not on our list now.
Madam City Manager.
The motion would be to add it. It is not on the list now.
I'm just clarifying a comment, that's all.
Oh, okay, sure.
Because it was mentioned that we were removing it, and we're not removing it from the CIP.
Correct, we're adding it to the CIP.
Further discussion, Councilmember Finch.
I wouldn't mind adding it to it, I just don't want to commit a number to it because inflation and everything else in the world going on. Adding it and leaving a number off of it would be okay.
Okay, then that begs a question for administration. Can we put something on there without a value, monetary value?
Madam Mayor, no, actually by code, a monetary value is required for a CIP item. And do keep in mind that, we're fully aware that I'm looking out at an item in 2028. I'm just going to say the first one that I see, library cameras for 15,000. That could be 18,000 by then. I mean, we just don't know, so we put in an estimated number that we believe is close. But as we get closer to that time frame, we refine it. So every year, this is updated with the most current information that we have.
Okay, Councilmember Wells.
Yeah, I guess my question is if we're gonna put a monetary value to it, and we already know what the estimated cost from the feasibility study was, I guess my question is to Councilmember Calhoun, why wouldn't we just put that number on there?
Councilmember Calhoun?
Because I picked a number that would be more of, I guess, inflation factor put into it, because it's going to be more than what the study was. And what they gave us, quite honestly, in my opinion, once, if we ever do arrive at having a community center, it's not going to look like what they gave us. It's going to be completely different than that. And so I don't want to sound like I just picked an arbitrary number, but I kind of just picked an arbitrary number that was higher due to what the cost is going to be. But I think the project, if it happens, will be different than what Victus gave us, because I don't think that was them kind of trying to tell us this is everything that we could put into it, except that I don't think everything they said we could put into it needs to go into it, and it needs to be configured differently, and actually I think it needs to be a little larger than what they had, but configured differently if it happens. So that's my thought on that.
Vice Mayor?
So just a question, if we point at putting this on our CI, our list, it's not prioritized in any fashion. It's just on our list saying, we're looking at it. I guess what I'm concerned about is with that dollar amount and with today's dollar amount and future dollar amounts, I'm not sure that I would like to, I can see putting it on this list, I suppose, but I'm just really not in favor of us putting it somewhere where we're putting ourselves in a position where we're going to say we're looking at this and it keeps coming back up, when I just don't see how, unless there could be magical funding that comes up, and that would be great, and I would love that. Yeah, it just seems kind of, it's on the list, but is it priority or not? I guess I'm just trying to figure out what the point is.
Other discussion? I'm looking at our list, and for example, in 2025, under Fire, Police, Public Safety, we have a $20 million fire station and also 15 million, excuse me, for police public safety building, and both of those are incredible needs right there. I mean, if we make it through 2025 and manage to fund those, and we get to 20, you said what year you were wanting to put this on?
I just put it in 2026.
2026. How realistic is that to have 20 more million? But I don't know. I don't know. Councilmember Keller.
Madam Mayor, what I'm trying to do is let the community know that we're not totally trying to kill this, totally opposed to it, totally against all of it. It doesn't commit us to any finances. It gives them maybe an opportunity to work towards, looking more into funding opportunities that are outside of the city. And, grants and other programs. I just think that there's enough interest in the community and outside, which, you look at those special assessment districts and things like that. But I've had a lot of people, and not just the ones that come here and talk all the time, but I've had a lot of people say, it's not a bad thing to have, because we know that when kids have more things to do, they get in less trouble. It's just figuring out if there's a way to pay for it at some point. I don't want to see it just go away. And then all of a sudden, in another 3 or 4 years, somebody wants to do another study, and we got to crank it all over again. I just like to sort of keep it on our radar, even if it's not on the front radar, and just keep the discussion going.
Well said. Councilmember Finch.
I agree that, this is something we should keep on here, but our priorities are fire and police, I think. Putting on here, how about, let's say $100,000, that way something's on there for it.
Do you want to amend the
We got years down the road looking at this, but we can at least say, amend it to where they're on here, and for 2026, put $100,000 in there. We've already spent $100,000 on it. Let's throw designate $100,000 more to see where we stand at that point in time.
Okay, would you like to make a motion
I would like to make a motion for that, to amend it.
From 20 million to 100,000. Is there a second for the amendment? Okay.
That way at least it gets on here.
Is there a second? No. I don't hear a second, so that motion dies for lack of a second. Councilmember Barnwell.
Yeah, I just want to, I think that we had an opportunity for a new fire hall, if I'm not correct, and that wasn't shovel-ready, but funds became available, and if it was shovel-ready, we would have been we could have received those funds. I think it sounds like from city manager, she said that this isn't committing those funds. So we're not committing $20 million. We're saying, hey, this is a pipe dream, yes, it's on there, it's not prioritized. All we're saying is if there are some people in this community that are pretty, they want this, and they're ready to go out there and try to get some funds. What we're saying as a council is, if you're prepared to do that, if money becomes available, we'll support you. So I think it's a win-win for us as a council. It doesn't hurt us to put this on the capital improvement. It's a win-win. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Wells.
If it's just hypothetical, I guess this question is for administration. If this is just hypothetical, couldn't we put we could say 100 million. I don't quite understand why we're discussing a monetary value that's just hypothetical. We all know that the community wants a rec center. We know that it's been talked about for, since I was in high school somewhere. But my point is that $20 million or $100,000 or $5, what is it that we're actually saying? That we're going to continue to look at it every year, which we've been doing. We're not appointing any funds, so the number is just hypothetical. Is that correct, administration?
Madam City Manager.
in some aspects, yes, and in some, it's a planning tool for us. As you can see, we do try to, I'll call it space out the funds. If we were to build a fire station and public safety building, or however we do it, police, because that is still something to be decided, the funding, if it fell in place, we would need 35 million in 2025. The reality is we couldn't get a bond for 2026. We just couldn't do that. But saying that doesn't, maybe we could build the public safety facility or whatever we end up with in 2024. So some of it is, it's tiny. Like, we're not for sure. We put a year on as, okay, in a couple of years, this amount we need to be looking at for bonding purposes. What's going to be paid off? What bonds are going to be paid off? Can we afford this bond payment in that time frame? And so it's really used as a tool for timing, is what we're doing.
Okay, that's good.
Did that answer?
Thank you.
That's a really good explanation, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are there other, just, what we're discussing is the amendment that Councilmember Calhoun made to, would you restate the amendment, please?
To, under the Parks and Recreation section, which I have on page 155, add a line for Community Recreation Center under the year 2026 with the dollar amount of $20 million.
Okay. Any more discussion? Vice Mayor Osenga?
Did we not have a second, or?
Oh, it's been, yeah, I just wanted it restated. We haven't voted on this yet.
I thought there was an amendment to put it to 100,000.
Oh, no, there was.
Oh, there was not, okay, thank you.
Died.
Oh, that's right, thank you.
Is,
My bad.
a further discussion on the amendment. Okay, Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to vote on that amendment.
Voting on the amendment to add Community Rec Center. Wells?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Mayor McClure?
Yes.
That amendment is approved. Now your main motion is back on the floor.
Further discussion on the main motion, which is the entirety of the capital improvement plan. No more amendments? Okay, Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to vote on that.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2022-128 as amended. Osenga?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Mayor McClure?
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Okay. We have a couple of other information. We've got one informational item. The city clerk's travel report for the municipal clerks conference, on page 434. And that looks like all of our business. So we are now, as people are leaving, to citizens' comments. This is the last chance you'll get to talk tonight, and there's no sign-in for this, but you will have 5 minutes per speaker, and you may just come up like that. Here we have an example of a person that knows how this works, so state your name, please, and all that.
Cindy Eklund, Inside City Limits, and speaking as a citizen of the city of Seward. Capital improvement projects lists are huge. In my, it's going on 30 years involved in city administration and public service, capital improvement projects lists are a tool that are used when you go to speak to legislators or finders. And one of the questions they ask is, how long has that been on your list? And as Micah pointed out earlier, the recreation center has been on lists inside this city since 1993. And so now if we can get it on the capital improvement projects list, and there's some kind of grant or some kind of, I don't know, Parks and Rec company that just loved us, wants to give us funding, we can say it's on our capital improvement projects list. And if we don't set a realistic amount, they're gonna go, who do you think you are? You can't build a recreation center for $100,000 or $5 or, and if you think it's gonna cost you $100 million, you better reconsider it. So I just think that amendment was a great amendment, and I really thank you, and I appreciate your time and your discussion on it, and thanks from my heart.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, come on up.
Is this citizens' comment or the last public hearing?
No, this is citizens' comments at the end of the meeting, and you can have 5 minutes. We're done with all the hearings.
Jim McDonald, Inside City Limits. I wish Jeff and his daughter had stayed here. You know, I really am truly concerned about our sewer lagoon at Lowell Point. 80 acre feet, 4 acres, 20 feet deep, 80 acre feet. It's raw sewage, it's settled, lots of things are added to it, and then it flows into Resurrection Bay, gravity fed, 300 feet deep. I think Jeff and those guys, they're already doing certain tests. You guys ought to start them on a 1-year study, starting in January, and do the whole through year and see how the chloroform level goes up and down, and specifically target Lowell Point and areas around that outfall. And I mean, I know you guys don't like to hear this, nobody likes to hear bad stuff, but I mean, you know, Resurrection Bay is a pretty important place in the world, and you know, if you just throw it under the rug and then it comes up in a couple of years and it's worse, it's not gonna look good for us, for Seward. I mean, you know, we're the adventure capital of Alaska. Resurrection Bay is our basic resource. Everything is because of Resurrection Bay. And again, you know, there is nurseries, fish nurseries south of Lowell Point. There's a lot of wildlife that starts in Resurrection Bay, and I think you guys need to know this because I think it's a worse thing, but you know, the cumulative effect of all the cruise ships, people don't realize, man, one of those 1,200-foot cruise ships has 10 acres of bottom underwater, and that's bottom paint. They only paint those guys once because they're too expensive to repaint the bottom. They build them, paint them, and that's it. They've got a system, and I mean, you know, American boats can't use it, but all the cruise ships are foreign hulls, so they can use stuff that's illegal for us to use. The only people that can still use the old, really poisonous bottom paint is the U.S. Navy, which again has a lot more linear feet of bottom than anything except the cruise ship company. So I mean, it's cumulative. Those things are putting off basically an electrical field. You know, it's copper. They've got cathodic protection on them and stuff. It's electrical field. It warns off all the growth and keeps it from growing, kind of poisonous. But there's you know, I mean, there's a lot of detrimental side effects from having those ships because they are so huge. And I really, I don't mean to reminisce here, but I really regret we started a program, it must have been 10 or 15 years ago, it was called the Ocean Rangers. I don't know if anybody remembers that. And our legislature passed it to put aboard each cruise ship a ranger. And that was my job for a lot of years, being on boats, being an engineer. And I mean, a ranger keeps a log. Man, these guys normally have this much fuel aboard. They do this with their sewage. They have this kind of cathodic protection and all these different things. So, I mean, anything ever happens, you know, and a lot of cruise ships have gone down, gone on the rocks. People don't realize they're just like any other boat in the Titanic. They can go down, you know. There's a lot of stuff, and you want to keep a record of it. And they need, you know, they're huge vessels that have way more people than our census is. And, you know, we're bringing them in 2 at a time and stuff like that. And they have to be, it's like having gorillas in the zoo. It's nice to have gorillas and get a few tigers, but you got to keep them in cages because they just don't do well running around by themselves. And that's with these guys, man. They're not putting our best interest first. So I think we need to look at a lot more of the long-term effects of our sewer lagoon, our cruise ships, and quite a few other things. And that's what will allow us to be the great seaport that we are, because we take care of our bay. Everybody else is doing this stuff. They're limiting cruise ships. So we got to start getting progressive on this. It's your job.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? And state your name and inside or outside the city.
Tongi Lebrecht, inside city limits. I really just want to say a lot of smart minds in this room. I'm impressed with the amount of people that are attending tonight. So obviously everything that we're talking about is worthy. I appreciate all the explanations, a lot of the background and the stuff you guys are doing, a lot of the debate. And I really just wanted to thank you for your service. It's a late night, it's a long night, and I appreciate what you do. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget low pay.
And anyone else?
Well, hopefully, as we...
You need to state your name.
Skip Ryerson, inside of city limits. Well, this is about the end of tonight's meeting. It's our last meeting of the year, and we are going to enter into a nice holiday season, so enjoy the holidays. But I wanted to just reflect on something. I wanted us to think over the holidays, you know. What do we want our town to look like for our full-time citizens and our visitors over the next 10 to 20 years? Please give that some thought during the holiday seasons. Providence Hospital, Avtech, SMIC, Mountain Haven Long-Term Care Center, Bike Park, Louis Citizens Baseball Field, Branson Pavilion, Bike Pass, Health Clinic, Bike Park, Animal Shelter, soon-to-be Public Works Building, and the Sea Life Center. These are just a few of the projects our community supported and built over the past decades, and projects that our former council members worked hard on. And we thank them for making Seward the town it is today. But no bike center, no rec center. Maybe I have myself to partially blame for that. As you see, back when the Sea Life Center was being promoted and designed, I and a group of interested citizens started to work on the community rec center. It always seemed like it was difficult to attain a time and space at Avtech and at our schools, so the group decided to put time forth to build this center for the community. The land was going to be contributed by the Kenai Peninsula School District. It was where the soccer field was at before it was cut down. Parks and Rec would be staffing the operation and consolidating their services and calling it their base. School sports would be integrated to alleviate foul weather injuries to athletes. Senior citizens would have a place to exercise, and the project was only forecasted to come in under $4 million. It was a functional, well-built, simple metal building structure. But the Sea Life Center Board asked us to delay our project and our fundraising efforts so as not to compete against the fundraising that they're currently doing. Years passed and the enthusiasm and opportunity faded, and our group all moved on with other things in our lives. So I apologize to our community for not pursuing this project further back in the late 80s and early 90s. Even though my kids are grown now today, and so is Joe Tugas and a number of his friends that I watched grow up over the years, I was still excited to see the rec center make the 5-year capital budget here recently. And I knew what that meant for a lot of families and kids. I had hopes that someday it would move up the top of the list, a list that I recall was contributed to from prior strategic planning sessions with the community, whereby citizens voted on the products that they wanted to see in our community. Yes, the community wanted a rec center, far before the current feasibility and survey study was done. You see, my enthusiasm for such facilities comes down to this. What kind of projects are we all going to leave our kids and grandkids in this town? Or facilities that we need to attract new families, such as Coast Guard families? Friends of mine seem to agree on something. If you don't keep kids busy, that's more time for them to get into trouble. So you can either look at the real social values of this type of facility, whereby kids can not only develop as sports, but also build social skills and help reduce mental health issues. Or we can wait 15 years when they're in high school, and we can see how that experiment worked, and we might possibly be raising our police budget in the future to deal with more youth problems. I watched the last council meeting, when the rec center came up for discussion. And I can see your hesitation, as many in the community did, for $18 million project, which didn't seem to be having a whole lot of support for everything that we were trying to put in. So yes, I can see how it fell short. But this should not have been the end of this process. Rather than it would be the start of a more organized process, headed up by administration and Parks and Rec, that would involve kids and the community input, whereby we sit down and work out things together and figure out what we really want and what it'll cost and what we'll have in it. I saw this as no different than a family wanting a contractor to build a house. They give them his wishes. He comes back with a $600,000 price tag, and they don't walk away from that process.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak before we close this? You have 5 minutes.
My name's Kat Sorensen, Inside City Limits. I want to say thank you again for that arduous, long budget cycle. I was here for, I think, 70 to 75% of it, and it was both exciting and informative. So thank you for that and for your support of the Seward Chamber of Commerce. And to clarify my comment earlier about the Christmas lights for the citizens and the businesses, you can be inside or outside of city limits. So there's no designation there. So everybody put up your Christmas lights. Thank you, and happy holidays.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak? Go ahead.
Doug Chesler, Inside City Limits, Public Works Director. Just want to thank everybody for we had a lot of support over the last night. A long night out on the streets and carried into a long day today, and I'm just really proud of that group. They really did a lot of work out there this last night on this big snowstorm. I'd also like to really remind downtown, especially parking tonight. 2 a.m. tomorrow morning, you have no parking on one side of the road. Tomorrow night, then that same thing. It's 2 different ones. It's just that twice a week you just got to switch cars. So if you have businesses down there, or if you know of folks that have businesses down there, we don't want the police to have to ticket, or we don't want to tow. We don't want to do any of that. So hopefully we get the cooperation from the folks downtown. Just watch those signs. If you have people in the bars, remind them, move that car across the road tonight, or you'll have a little ticket on your windshield. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mike F. in Buskirk, Inside City Limits. I'll be super quick. I just want to say thank you. I look forward to continuing this process and having some community meetings where we can, maybe with the chamber, with the city, with the prevention coalition, some real town hall type community meetings where we figure out what it is that we want in the future, and then some groups of us can go and start fundraising and looking for grants for this. And the administration could maybe find a grant, or that window is open, and I really, really appreciate it. And I also want to say thank you to Doug and his crew. I couldn't believe this morning at 7 in the morning, my little tiny cul-de-sac was plowed. I didn't think I'd make it to work, but it was an amazing job done by City Council.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Almost out of time. No? Okay, then I'll bring it to council and administration comments and responses to citizens' comments. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also want to thank Public Works and Doug for his communication with me and putting out information. We're putting it as much as we can on Facebook, and we're always asked how many crew members, and so last night, or maybe it was today, I'm not quite sure, it's all blended together, put out information how many street crew members there are, and just, for anyone wondering, there's only 4 of them. 4 of them to do all of these city streets. So really great job. Doug pulled some other crew members from Public Works and had them assist, and really great job. Also doing snow removal with the harbor crew, and they've done a great job as well, and then the Parks and Rec starting with sidewalks. So thank you to all of them and to our community for being patient, and the comments on Facebook were very great as well. One item that the mayor has asked me about, and I sent out a survey for about the council retreat, and I can't get a date to come together, so I'll be throwing out some new dates, to have everyone as much as possible involved. So I just want to make sure everyone can be there, so I'll send out some new dates as soon as possible. And, kind of in celebration of adopting the budget, which I always love when the budget's adopted, there are some Christmas cookies over there, sugar up, thank you for all of your hard work on that. And also thank you for the nice comments about the Christmas lights, but I really want to thank you for that appropriation to make the Christmas lights happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, council comments. Let's start with Councilmember Finch.
I appreciate, I've seen the city crew out at 8 PM at night, and at 1:30 today, they were still doing alleys. You guys did a great job. Grandson's loving the lights. He keeps looking forward to more and more lights. And I just overall want to say everybody, have a safe Merry Christmas.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Barnwell.
I've been busy the last, you guys keep me really busy here. So I was in Anchorage last week with the AML conference, which was really inspiring. And then, we drove to Anchorage on Tuesday night and just about died getting into Anchorage. It was I think one of the worst drives we've ever had, particularly through the streets of Anchorage. We didn't see a single snowplow from basically the whole thing. So it was pretty amazing watching last night what this city did. And I'm really proud of this town. It's not only Doug's crew, but we rode our bikes. Well, I walked my bike on the docks tonight, and they were all clear. The bike path was cleared along the water, and then all the lights. So it's really a pretty cool night to celebrate this town. There's a lot of positive things going on. And on that note, Doug he's a great tour guide. So I did a tour of the city last week. I think that was last week. Seems like all of a blur. What a great tour. I mean, the city is really firing on all cylinders. I was really impressed. All the departments, just a lot of positive energy, a lot of people really excited about what they're doing, from Norm and his crew with Tony, IT, the police, the jail, Public Works, electrical, Maggie with the Parks and Rec, and in the city department, the city managers, and the assistant city manager, and the finance department. So I just being an outsider coming into this, I'm just really proud of our city for all of that, and just want to thank you guys for doing all that. So that's it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Top that, Councilmember Callen. Go ahead.
I don't need to top that. Yeah, everybody, they did a great job. We all appreciate that. I won't go into any more detail than anybody else. Just want to thank all of our city employees for the job that they strive to do on a daily basis for us. I'm glad that we got through the budget cycle. Just we need to remember it is a fluid document. There are things that I'm sure we'll be looking at tweaking as we go, and looking forward to that continuing education as we learn more about how to take care of the funds that belong to the citizens of Seward, and we'll all get better at that as we move forward. A couple of things besides having great holidays for everybody. I don't want to make special plug, but I'm going to do it anyway. On the 17th, this coming Saturday, is the American Legion Auxiliaries Day with Santa, the parade with the fire trucks and everything, and then gift giving. Will start, I believe that's 11 a.m., where they can parade around on the fire trucks with Santa and then come back and they'll give out gifts. They typically give out 120 to 140 gifts, so if you know people, that's available to anybody in the community. And then on Christmas Day, as we do on Thanksgiving Day, there will be a free community meal that starts at 1:30 till about 4:30, and that is a free meal open to anybody in the community. And we will also deliver meals into the community for those that can't get out or that are working and would like a meal delivered. They just need to call us and let us know. and that delivery starts about noon. I think at Thanksgiving, between deliveries and the people we fed at the Legion, we fed about 250 people on Thanksgiving, so we look forward to that service again on Christmas. And since we don't have another meeting, it's not a special event. New Year's Eve will be American Legion Post 5's 103rd birthday. And contrary to popular belief, I have not bartended there that whole time. But I just want to thank everybody all year that have come and taken part. Sometimes it seems like there's not interest in what we do until it's something that people think is a little controversial. But it's nice to have community involvement in our meetings and in our process, because if we don't hear from you and you don't talk to us, we don't know what you're thinking and what you're after. So always feel free. We may not always agree, but we can always work through it. So everybody have great holidays.
Thank you. Councilmember Wells.
Echo everything that everybody said, and a shout out to the American Legion for the food drives, or not the food drives, but the meals and everything, so that's a huge thank you. I want to thank Cindy Eklund for her report today, the electric department for being so quick on the power outage that happened where I was at today, and the road crews, of course. It was, as we've all said, it was incredibly quick and worked out so well. And I appreciate the citizens' comments on all the subjects tonight. So everybody have a great holiday and a happy solstice.
Oh, solstice. Vice Mayor Osenka.
Well, everybody else said everything I was going to say, so I echo everything that was said before this. Thanks, everybody. All the citizen comments, I appreciate it tonight. I think the budget went fairly well, or went really well, and I think it was a very good meeting, and thanks to administration. And I would just give a shout out to our city crews for the snow clearing that they did. I was surprised when a grader was going by my house. I think it was I thought it was like 10 o'clock last night. So I was pretty surprised to see it going up doorway there. So, but thank you for that, and happy holidays.
Okay, well, everything that they said, but I'll add on to it. Being in Anchorage during their snowfall and trying to just walk from the Marriott to the Denina Center and watching people fall in the streets because there was that much snow in the streets, watching city buses blocking streets because they were stuck in the snow for an entire afternoon. I mean, it's just remarkable to drive back into Seward. This was the previous snowfall, and we're fine. And then, yeah, I got woke up at 11 last night. I was, dang it, they're plowing out there, So this is very good. Shout out to, I've heard a lot of comments today too for Public Works and everybody that's worked. As mayor, I've gotten to do a couple fun things. I got to light the Christmas tree. I got to greet Santa Claus at the Sea Life Center. I barely made it back from Kenai, but I was there, man. I got to do that. As not mayor, I really enjoyed the Library Museum open house on Saturday. As RBHS president, we had the museum open and we've got it all decorated. If you can get there when it's opened. I played the pump organ so much my hands hurt now, not my legs, but my hands. We're getting into the Christmas spirit. I wanted to point out about fireworks this year too. By, I believe, popular demand, fireworks is going to be at 8 p.m. So don't think you're going to, don't wait up till midnight. You'll miss it if you're out of town. But I think that's a nice thing for the littler ones, and some older ones too. Just have also, I did want to mention, I think at the next meeting I'll give a brief report, but I was up at the Conference of Mayors. This is my brief report now, maybe. And the good thing about that, it's the first time I've gotten to get out of Seward for a while, I got to reacquaint myself with some former borough people, and it was really useful networking. I met all sorts of mayors. You'd be amazed. This whole room up there, it was filled with mayors. Every place in Alaska has one of us, and there's a lot of us, and it was really very useful learning about other communities and such. And I want to thank the city for letting me go. And on that note, I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I will adjourn us at 9:16.